Refugee Camp, Z-Zombies, CLOCKTIME. This story is fictional and has no relation to real events or existing people. Any similarity is a fucking coincidence. Amor P. V. 7, A. 5, ET Zombies. Unconsciousness, voracity, and brutality, define predators. Unconsciousness, voracity, and brutality, define the corrupt. Unconsciousness, voracity, and brutality, define zombies. Corrupts are masters of manipulation and greed. They hide in the shadows, weaving networks of deception and corruption. They embody a dark facet of human nature, and their ruthless actions threaten to plunge the world into chaos. And the chaos began. There was no warning, only rumors, and always like dubious gossip from afar, and among all the repetitive young and beautiful news and the reproachable videos on the networks, began to appear as isolated madmen, in videos shared by funny and sadistic teenagers who smiled as they showed the cruel footage of a ruthless, dirty, spicy, and bloody vagabond biting the neck of an even more frightening old woman whispering worse than a pig in the slaughterhouse. When they showed me that video, it wasn't the video, it was the attitude of the one who showed it to me, which affected my sensitivity. Like when the mom of one of the boys showed me a video that showed how a supposed rape was dispatched, how his arms and legs were cut by machete beats while he was still alive. At that point, I realized that chaos was not only manifested in the atrocious events, but also in the cruelty of those who shared them. What world had we created? And what role did we play in it? The shadows widened, and the line between victim and deceased became more and more diffuse. At the borders of the border, where the stars fade at dawn and almost everything lies in ruins, there is the refugee camp. A place forgotten by the gods and inhabited by those who have lost everything, their home, their hope and, in many cases, their humanity. A desolate place, where corruption spreads like a plague. The leaders, neither noble nor righteous, cling to power with bloody clutches. The joyful ladies, women who may have been more worthy, are now traffickers of pleasure, information, and secrets. Her laughter has become cold and her eyes empty. Love, a word that still resounds in my heart and in the hearts of some of the refugees, is now a hidden treasure. Couples are separated by force, children are taken from their parents' arms, and loneliness sits on everyone in the midst of despair, without a spark of hope. Two souls are in the narrow spaces between the tents of the field. Tony, a refugee who escaped the secret police, obsessed with discovering the origin of the disease that has turned many into violent monsters. Lisa, a young university student who managed to escape when she learned that paramilitaries were looking for her for exposing her ideas against the government regime. Lisa was a rebel with scars in her soul, who fought for freedom and truth, things that were not in agreement with the established authority beyond the border. I knew that they met one night as they both crossed the border in hiding through one of the worst areas. I saw his love flourish in the middle of chaos. Lisa and Tony find themselves in secret corners, sharing stolen words and kisses, with the clothes wearing. But corruption does not stop. The leaders of the camp are willing to sacrifice anyone to maintain their control, and I speak to them as little as possible, convinced that any word that dislikes them would bring complications to my humble person. When the outbreak broke out, the struggle for survival became even more ruthless. Lisa and Tony had to make impossible decisions. They would risk their lives for the good of others. I told them that no one would recognize them, and that thank you is just a word, in the face of darkness and despair, and where the line between victim and thief is drawn, their love could be the only fraction of humanity that would keep them alive and united. In the refugee camp, decadence and destruction are intertwined in a mortal dance under the dying moon, being a game of shadows and secrets while I have to witness the tragedy that develops. As I heard a mother's complaints about the bump of shared bathrooms, and the consumption of Mary Jane smoking near her children, and young women's prostabular attitude. Look, ma'am, I said to her, here the humanitarian aid staff is voluntary, and we are very few, and to me, they don't pay me a penny for what I do to secure the safety and food of the refugees, and I do not do business nor take advantage nor profit. Now, you collaborate and be as close as possible to your children, and excuse my accent, I am also a foreigner, and there I took it to flee to the area of food rations distribution. I always liked to collaborate with the unloading of the trucks and by the way put an eye on the remittances and boarding tickets coincided with the amount of food they brought us, since a colleague smarter than I had discovered that they landed smaller amounts of food and the difference was sold in shops in the area. Who gets rich while refugees struggle to survive? And the colleague, mocking me, dropped me in the face, they look Argentine. Go to shit. Way. I answered it with my best version of neutral Spangali language. And let me know if you arrive well. And I'm sure he went round to shit because I never saw him again. In the refugee camp, they talk about the disease. The new plague that spreads like fire in a dry forest. The newcomers speak in whispers, afraid that the truth will reach them. Tony, with his eyes closed, recognized one of his country's secret police agents. What are you doing here as a refugee? Disease is not just physical, it is a metaphor of corruption that carries the heart of the refugee camp. Leaders are accomplices. The joyful ladies, simple whores, traffic anything. Love, like dying light, fades away in darkness. Lisa and Tony, watch his country's secret police agent, a shadow infiltrate, is a figure that arouses distrust as an echo of the past, a reminder of the oppressive regimes and control tactics that led to the fall of many nations. Who's that uncle? No one knows, and his voice is a cold whispering in the ears of those who hear it. Maybe he's looking to identify somebody, from whom we've fled oppression and now they can be here like us, Lisa said, and Tony assented. The most likely thing is that he is looking for exchange information that he can find in the field, the heads that have price and then sell it like a piece of meat. The agent moves like a shadow among the refugees. He infiltrates groups, hears conversations, observes without being seen. Some believe that he is immune to the disease, that his blood is impregnated with shit. Tony acknowledged it. Tony, he was part of the resistance in his home country. He fought against the regime, facing agents like him. The recognition was instantaneous, the attitude, the typical balance in the passage, the cold look, the secrecy. The agent hasn't chased him, at least not yet. But Tony knew that his presence was no coincidence. The sinister rumor of the disease spreads like a vomiting headache throughout the camp. The last refugees arrived in waves, overflowing the capacity, and we had to give the tents to the women and children, leaving the men to the weather as the nights became more cruel. They talked about a disease that resembled rage or the zombie drug. The news kept silent, but the social networks boiled with speculation. Rabies could be the only virus that, by suffering a genetic mutation, would cause humans to stop behaving rationally to become genuine living dead. Anger, transmitted mainly by bites from infected animals, affects the central nervous system and can lead to violent aggression and confusion. Fentanyl, known as the zombie drug, is considered 50 times stronger than heroin and 100 times more powerful than morphine. Its overdose is generally fatal, and its recreational consumption has caused thousands of deaths in the United States and other countries. Originally, fentanyl was used as a drug to treat severe pain and as anesthetic support in surgeries. However, its abuse has led to a global crisis. Could this substance be behind the strange behavior? The dance continues. The feeling of déjà vu approaches me like a ghost. The rumors of illness, rage, or zombie drug, or whatever, are mixed with my memories of past days. In my memories, those moments before an emergency evacuation described civilians who foolishly waited until the last moment, clinging to the illusion that everything would be okay. But the storms of the military clashes reminded them of the harsh reality. The escape was frenetic, the heart beating at the pace of the detonations. And in the midst of the chaos, a bullet scar on my back became an indisputable reminder, and the blinking in my back well was a wish that everything bad could get worse. The border was close, and the uncertainty too. Men in the weather, women and children in the tents, all sharing the same fear. The secret police officer kept his intentions hidden. The fall of hours continued, and I, with my déjà vu and my scar in my ass, wondered what would be of this forgotten field. While the uncertainty of the unexpected led me to advise Lisa and Tony to leave the refugee camp, they had their papers in order and getting them a rental room and any honest work that connected them. Lisa and Tony intertwined their destinies in the refugee camp. Uncertainty weighed on them like a shadow, and decisions were woven in the silence of the night. Lisa, with her past marked by flight, looked at Tony. He, with his bravery at the cost, weighed the options. The rental room, the honest work, everything seemed possible. At a corner away from the other refugees' eyes, Lisa took Tony's hand. "What are we going to do?" he whispered. Tony looked at the horizon. "We can't stay here," he said. "Sickness, rage, or the zombie drug, no matter what we call it, it's gathering us," Lisa cried. "But what if we find something better than being here?" And they came to an agreement. And I would free my conscience, and could take my deserved rest. That never happened. I had already made arrangements for the young people to leave the campo the next morning in casual accordance with the beginning of my free days, to install them in the village I.O. the city and then on my side throw me belly to the wind to hole Gazanier like the best Homer Simpson. Neither that happened. In the middle of the night a frightening yelling resounded in the darkness. At first, I thought it was an animal. Upon leaving my cabin, the first thing I saw was one of the uncommon whores with her lush body running naked like a soul chasing the devil. That distracted me, and so much that it distraught me. The zombies emerged from the shadows, their lifeless eyes fixed on the human flesh. I saw Lisa and Tony running, their hands still intertwined. The shit of disorganization and chaos intensified, and the lines between victim and aggressor confused me, and for a brief moment I was a strange witness to the tragedy that was developing. And I also ran. Naked, in underwear and Superman shirt in the light of a dying moon. Hearing some revolver shots and guns between screaming and hellish yelling, I escaped from the refugee camp interning myself in the fog with my déjà vu, my heavy conscience and as propelled by the shadow of the scarring scar in my ass, and I could not take my deserved rest. The night of the undead had begun, and the refugee camp was plunged into chaos, and into oblivion.